Chinese state-sponsored hackers from Typhoon are actively exploiting a zero-day vulnerability in VersaDirector, compromising managed service providers through a sophisticated web shell dubbed VersaMem, exposing critical U.S. infrastructure to severe cyber threats. The Seattle Airport is entering its fourth day of outages caused by a cyber attack. Though most flights are departing and arriving as scheduled, the airport's website, phone, and Wi-Fi are down, forcing staff to resort to manual processes. QR code phishing attacks have surged by 2,000% as cybercriminals exploit Microsoft Sway to trick unsuspecting 365 users into handing over their credentials. And speaking of Microsoft, CISA is praising the new expanded security logging that Microsoft rolled out after their most recent email breach, which has bolstered the ability of CISA and other government agencies to identify and mitigate cyber threats. You'll hear all about it and more as you continue listening to the Daily Decrypt. A zero-day vulnerability in VersaDirector has been exploited by advanced hackers compromising key US-based managed service providers. This exploit uses a custom web shell called VersaMem that harvests credentials and enables attackers to access the provider's downstream customer networks as authenticated users. And for a bit more context, VersaDirector is a platform that many service providers use to manage secure access services. And yes, if it's compromised, these attackers can infiltrate the downstream customer networks to steal their data or launch other attacks. The attackers are believed to be Chinese state-sponsored groups who have targeted critical US infrastructure before. And to quote the researchers who discovered this, the initial access port for the compromised VersaDirector systems was likely port 4566, which, according to Versa documentation, is a management port associated with high availability pairing between Versa nodes. They identified compromised SOHO devices with TCP sessions over 4566, which were immediately followed by large HTTPS connections over port 443 for several hours. For more details on this vulnerability, check out the full research from Black Lotus Labs and Versa Networks, which you can find linked in the show notes below. The Seattle-Tacoma International Airport is facing its fourth day of system outages due to a cyber attack that hit the port of Seattle on August 24th. For the most part, flights are on schedule, but many essential services are down, such as websites, phone, email, Wi-Fi, and even the flight delay screens, which is leaving the airport staff handwriting boarding passes and manually sorting bags, which is causing delays inadvertently. Luckily, the security systems and passenger screenings remain intact, so the safety isn't technically compromised, though I'm sure those security engineers are getting quite a relief because there's no Wi-Fi or internet traffic to monitor. But as of right now, the Port of Seattle is working with outside experts and federal agencies to resolve the issue, but there's no ETA for a full recovery yet. Netscope Threat Labs reported a staggering 2,000-fold increase in phishing attacks using Microsoft Sway in July of 2024. These attacks primarily hit users in Asia and North America, focusing on sectors like technology, manufacturing, and finance. So here's how this attack works. Attackers send phishing emails with QR codes that lead to malicious websites, per usual. When you scan these QR codes with your mobile device, which typically has weaker security, you're redirected to phishing pages designed to steal your Microsoft 365 credentials. And the reason this is concerning is that QR codes and images can bypass traditional email scanners that only scan text, making these attacks harder to detect. Plus, mobile devices often lack the robust security measures found on desktops, making them easier targets. This information was originally reported by Bleeping Computer, where they say that the attackers employed several tactics to further boost their campaign's effectiveness, like transparent phishing, where they stole the credentials and multi-factor authentication codes and used them to sign the victims into their Microsoft accounts while showing them the legitimate login page. Now, this isn't the first time Microsoft Sway has been abused. The Persuasion campaign 5 years ago targeted Office 365 login credentials, tricking high-ranking individuals in various sectors. So all that to be said, Be cautious anytime you see a QR code. Even if you don't intend to scan it, look at it as if someone's trying to scam you. It's one of the easiest ways to phish people because you don't even need an email. You don't even need to go into your email to click the link. You see it on a telephone pole out while you're walking, and you're like, oh, I wonder what that is. Something in our brain doesn't associate QR codes with malicious activity like it does with links in emails. And it's also important to know that QR codes in emails are not scanned the same way that links are or hyperlinks are, because the link is actually embedded in an image. So if you work for a company that uses software that scans hyperlinks and you've gotten used to trusting that they will protect you when you click those links, that protection is not in place with QR codes. So just avoid scanning QR codes at all costs. You can even email the original sender and ask them to send the link, and they will likely oblige. And finally, this last story comes to you directly from Cybersecurity Dive. I didn't have time to write out my own version, so I'm just going to read Cybersecurity Dive. So all credit for this last one goes directly to Cybersecurity Dive. So let's get into it. CISA officials credit Microsoft Security Log expansion for improved threat visibility. Greater access to Microsoft event logs is paying off for the U.S. government agencies and critical infrastructure providers, which have gained greater visibility into their network environments, according to CISA. Microsoft expanded free access to security logs in 2023 after state-linked threat actors stole thousands of emails from the State Department after gaining access to Microsoft Exchange Online. And to quote Jeff Green, the CISA Executive Assistant Director for Cybersecurity, yes, Microsoft has expanded access to the logging elements that were used by State Department to detect the 2023 compromise to a vastly larger set of customers, including all federal agencies and numerous critical infrastructure organizations. These new logs are being used by organizations today to detect threats. Earlier this year, Microsoft began taking steps to overhaul its internal security culture through a program dubbed the Secure Future Initiative. The company has already taken steps to realign its security governance, putting security at the forefront of how it develops software and interacts with customers at the larger industry. Green said that CISA plans to hold Microsoft accountable to make sure that it lives up to its security commitments, saying, quote, CISA will continue to work with Microsoft and other companies to ensure that their products are secure by design and that Microsoft lives up to the commitments it has publicly announced around improving the security of its products following the 2023 compromise. The win for the U.S. government comes as CISA, along with the FBI, National Security Agency, and a group of foreign cybersecurity authorities, released a best practices guide for event logging last week. The new guide is a part of an effort to combat sophisticated threat activity from state-linked threat groups such as Typhoon. The group uses living off the land techniques to disguise its threat activities using normal security tools that won't trigger alerts when moving around computer networks. Security researchers at ReliaQuest have been tracking a ransomware actor known as Medusa, which has also used living off the land techniques in multiple attacks. By implementing the best practices for event logging and threat detection outlined in this guide, organizations can enhance their ability to identify and mitigate malicious activities, thereby protecting their networks, devices, and data from compromise, says Alex Capraro, the cyber intelligence analyst at ReliaQuest.
This has been the Daily Decrypt. If you found your key to unlocking the digital domain, show your support with a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It truly helps us stand at the frontier of cyber news. Don't forget to connect on Instagram or catch our episodes on YouTube. Until next time, keep your data safe and your curiosity alive.